As the last of a long list of commanders to preside over Vint Hill Farms Station, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you this videotape of the June 12, 1997 closing ceremony. This ceremony marks the end of 55 years of service by dedicated men and women who literally wrote the book, chapter by chapter, on signals warfare and intelligence security. On June 12, 1942, Vint Hill Farms Station was activated as an Army Signal Security Agency monitoring station. Through several generations, from the Army intercept operators of World War II to today's intelligence electronic warfare specialists, Vint Hill Farms Station has served as an indispensable part of our national defense. The dedication, professionalism, energy, and innovation of all who have served here have directly contributed to the combat readiness enjoyed by today's Army. As we call attention to and honor the unprecedented record of service and support that is Vint Hill Farms Station, let us be reminded that these achievements, this exemplary record of exceptional service, have only been made possible by the tireless efforts of extraordinary people, the people of Vint Hill Farms Station, both past and present. For they have served their country and community with distinction and have helped to enable me to close Vint Hill Farms Station with dignity. Major General Gerard P. Brome, Commander, U.S. Army CECOM, captured the spirit of the people of Vint Hill Farms Station with a famous quote from Teddy Roosevelt. "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who errs and comes up short again and again, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly." And so, on behalf of a grateful Army and nation, I say thank you. Thank you for the many contributions you've made in defense of freedom around the globe. Thank you for not being afraid to venture into the arena. And now, the closing ceremony.
All right. Good luck.
Ladies and gentlemen, the closure ceremony will begin in 5 minutes. I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge and to thank the participants in today's ceremony. We want especially to acknowledge the participation of the 437th Military Police Company Color Guard of Fort Belvoir, the 389th Army Band, AMC's own, based at Aberdeen Proving Ground, and the Salute Battery from Headquarters 2nd Battalion, 111th Field Artillery Brigade of the Virginia Army National Guard. We also acknowledge the many representatives of units which trained or served here over the years. Former members of the 1st Major Unit to train and serve here during World War II, the 2nd Signal Service Battalion. Members of the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps and the Women's Army Corps who served alongside the male soldiers in World War II and later. Former members of the 1st Post-World War II Army Major Counterintelligence and Intelligence Organization, the Army Security Agency. Representatives of the many reserve units who have trained here, including the 8601st Individual Mobilization Augmentation Detachment. Representatives of the many active duty units and organizations which have been stationed here over the years, including the 201st Military Intelligence Battalion, the Intelligence and Electronic Warfare Directorate, the Intelligence Materiel Management Center, the Program Executive Office, Intelligence and Electronic Warfare, the Operational Security Evaluation Group, and many others. We also acknowledge members of local veterans groups, including the American Legion, the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Veterans of the Vietnam War, and others. A special thanks to the organizations which have provided displays today, including the Airborne Electronics Evaluation Support Branch of the U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command, the Virginia Museum of Military Vehicles, the private collectors who volunteered their vehicles and time today, and the Office of the Project Manager, Signals Warfare. Ladies and gentlemen, those standing to the left of the General's flag, would you please move back about 30 feet, because the color guard will be marching through there at a later point in the ceremony. If you'd find your seats or move back, please.
Sorry. Sir, how are you? Good to see you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the installation commander, Colonel Mark E. Cornwell, welcome to the closing ceremony for the United States Army Garrison at Vint Hill Farms Station. Colonel Cornwell is your host for today's ceremony. The reviewing officer is Major General Gerard P. Brome, commander of the U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command. Honored guests include General Johnny E. Wilson, commander, U.S. Army Materiel Command, distinguished general officers, senior civilian executives, and other senior leaders from Headquarters Department of the Army, the U.S. Army Program Executive Office for Intelligence and Electronic Warfare and Sensors, the U.S. Army Materiel Command, the U.S. Army Communications Electronics Command, and the U.S. Army Intelligence and Security Command, distinguished representatives of the United States Congress and the Virginia General Assembly, and distinguished elected officials and civic and business leaders of Fauquier County, Virginia.
Sound attention! Sound adjutant call!
Please rise for the arrival of the official party and remain standing until the end of the invocation given by Chaplain Major Drake, the last Army chaplain assigned to this installation.
Garrison, present, halt! Parade, fifth. Sir, the Constitutional President.
Is that the command?
Present. Halt. Order. Halt. Parade, fifth.
Let us humble our hearts and bow our heads in prayer. Lord, Creator, Redeemer, and Sustainer, we give you the praise for establishing the earth and the heavens. Be with all our leaders and those who find themselves at the four corners of the globe serving our nation's interest. Endow them with courage and conviction. Lord, with a heart of faith, we know you were here in 1942 when Vint Hill Farms Station came into its own and later earned its place in history by keeping the lines of communication open. This saved many lives and shortened World War II. We also know in faith that you are here today, and we thank you for your presence at this very significant time in history of Vint Hill Farms Station. Let us all resolve once again to work hard to do our part so that our nation might continue to be a refuge for those who seek hope. Lord, help us to appreciate the sacrifices of the soldier, the civilian, and family members who gave so much of themselves and sometimes their own life in the service of our country. Lord, the paths of friendship here at Vint Hill Farm Station have left a trail of many blessings. We thank you for all the blessings and the memories from our pilgrimage at Vint Hill. Lord, grant us the ability to accept that which we cannot change, courage to change the things that we can, and your wisdom to know the difference. Give us faith that we might see in every difficulty an opportunity and in every blessing a responsibility. Lord, be with us today. We lift our hearts to you. Hear our prayers. Lord, continue to grant us the grace and the courage to close with dignity. And all God's people said, Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Today we are commemorating the closure of Vint Hill Farm Station, which will officially take place on September 30th of this year. Rather than scheduling this ceremony in September, today, June 12th, was selected for two reasons. First, June 12th is the 55th anniversary of the official establishment of Vint Hill Farms Station in 1942. Secondly, with the departure of so many of our soldiers and civilians in the near future, this is the day to conduct the ceremony. The installation was established 6 months and a few days after the most devastating intelligence failure in the history of the United States, the surprise attack at Pearl Harbor. Activities at Vint Hill Farms Station were part of our national determination to prosecute that war until final victory. There were many lessons learned at Pearl Harbor and during the rest of the war. After the war, Vint Hill Farms Station continued as a site for intelligence training and for operational, logistical, and materiel support of the counterintelligence and intelligence mission. During World War II and up until today, the men and women who trained and operated here made very significant contributions to our national defense. The first U.S. Army field station or listening post was at Vint Hill Farm Station. Cryptanalysts were trained here. Much of the Army's intelligence equipment has been fielded, managed, and maintained from here. Vint Hill Farm Station has provided trained personnel to numerous units around the world. To symbolize these contributions, in honor of and as a tribute to those who have served here during World War II and later, Acting Command Sergeant Major Tweedy, the Garrison Senior NCO, and Staff Sergeant Donovan, the AMC NCO of the Year, will place campaign streamers earned during and since World War II on the Army flag. Arrayed in white, the Army flag bears military symbols such as swords, a musket, bayonet, cannon, cannonballs, mortars and mortar bombs, a drum and drumsticks, a rattlesnake, and the motto, "This will defend." During World War II, battles were fought around the world, from beaches of North Africa to the islands of the Pacific to the plains of Germany. Some well-known campaigns include Normandy in 1944 and the Rhineland in 1944 and 1945. At this time, Vint Hill Farm Station was a training ground for the Signal Intelligence Service and later the Signal Security Agency in code breaking, signal security, and interception of enemy communications. We are attaching 39 streamers to honor the station's contributions. At the conclusion of World War II, many hoped that we would remain at peace. But in June 1950, the North Koreans, later joined by Communist Chinese forces, invaded South Korea. They were resisted by Republic of Korea and U.S. forces. During the Korean War, more battles were fought, including the UN Defensive of 1950. Army Security Agency units earned 14 meritorious unit citations and 14 Republic of Korea presidential unit citations during that conflict. We are attaching 10 streamers to honor the station's contributions. The end of active fighting in the Korean War did not end American involvement in Asia. During the Vietnam War, battles were fought from the coastal lowlands to the steamy jungle mountains and the highland plains of the interior. Vint Hill Farm Station sent highly trained professionals and advanced equipment in support of a myriad of operations. We are attaching 17 streamers to honor the station's contributions. Since the Vietnam War and conflicts short of regional or general war, actions in the Dominican Republic, Grenada, and Panama took place, where Vint Hill personnel played less heralded but no less important roles in support of our soldiers in the field. We are attaching 3 streamers to honor the station's contributions. Most recently, Americans, including those at Vint Hill Farm Station, responded once again to threats to the peace and to our interests in the Persian Gulf War following Iraq's invasion of Kuwait and threat to Saudi Arabia. From August 1990 personnel of the 201st Military Intelligence Battalion, the Intelligence Materiel Management Center, the Intelligence and Electronic Warfare Directorate, and others participated effectively in operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm. We are attaching 3 final streamers reflecting the defense of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and the ceasefire to honor the station's contributions. Including the streamers we have attached, the Army flag now bears a total of 173 campaign streamers honoring actions from the Revolutionary War to Operation Desert Storm. As a part of our overall war-making and deterrent postures, the people at Vint Hill Farms Station have played significant, though mostly unheralded, roles in both hot and cold wars. Today's environment calls for the closure of many military installations in the United States and overseas. In a way, that's sad, but it is also a hopeful and optimistic sign. Vint Hill Farm Station came from this community. After 55 years, we are ready to return it. The fact that it should be safe to do so bodes well for our future and the future of the world. The blue flag trimmed in gold you see before you is the flag or colors of the United States Army Garrison Vint Hill Farm Station. Starting in the 17th century in Europe, the term colors comes from the assignment of a specific flag color to each regiment in the battle line for identification and as a rallying point. Now we refer to our national flag, the Army flag, and command or organizational flags all as colors. The last commander of Vint Hill Farm Station and the post's last command sergeant major will now case the organizational colors to symbolize the inactivation of Vint Hill Farm Station as an Army installation. Sergeant Major Tweedy will pass the organizational colors to Colonel Cornwell, who, with the assistance of the Sergeant Major, will case the colors. He will then pass them to Major General Brome, who will pass them again to Sergeant Major Tweedy for the last time, symbolically inactivating the installation. Headquarters, Department of the Army, Washington, D.C. General Orders number 18, dated 1 May, 1997. Vint Hill Farm Station Base Closure Action. Effective 30 September 1997, Vint Hill Farm Station, Virginia, is inactivated. Signed, Togo D. West, Jr., Secretary of the Army. Staff Sergeant Donovan, the AMC NCO of the Year, is now removing the organizational colors from the ceremony area for safekeeping until they are deposited in the Army's historical archives. Ladies and gentlemen, the Commander, Communications Electronics Command, Major General Gerard P. Brome.
Well, good afternoon. General Mrs. Wilson, distinguished general officers,
Department of the Army Senior Executive Service members, honored guests representing the United States Congress, the Virginia General Assembly, Fauquier County, Colonel and Mrs. Cornwell, current and former members of Vint Hill Farms Station, friends of Vint Hill Farms Station. Good afternoon. If that ceremony didn't touch your heart or leave a tear in your eye, I think you need to have your vital signs checked. I want to, at the outset, recognize the soldiers who are participating in this ceremony. They are really what it's all about. I'd like to recognize the 437th Military Police Company who formed the Honor Guard, and they're out of Fort Belvoir, Virginia. The Salute Battery from A Company, 2nd Battalion, 111th Artillery Brigade, 29th Infantry Division, Virginia National Guard, and the band, the 389th AMC's own, which I have to keep reminding General Wilson used to be CECOM's own until a couple of years ago. But it's really appropriate that you all are here today. I'd like to hand for all of those fine young soldiers out there. This really is a true Army team. You know, today is a day of mixed emotion for all of us. Particularly, I think, for those great men and women, military and civilian, government and contractor team who make up what is Vint Hill Farms Station. It's a day that's filled with not a little sadness, but also, I think, with a great deal of pride and lots of nostalgic memories. To use the words of Charles Dickens, today is like the best of times and the worst of times. It's the best of times because there have been so many magnificent achievements by the members of the Vint Hill Farms Station community. Achievements which have literally impacted the course of this nation's history. Achievements which have blazed a path for our Army into the next century. Achievements that we remember and honor today. It's the worst of times because we realize that in another few months, this proud community will no longer be together, at least as an identifiable entity. Let me spend a few minutes at the outset on history and memories. This land has a proud heritage in our nation's history dating back to almost, or at least 1772. The Army's involvement began, as the announcer indicated, on June 12th, 1942, 55 years ago today, when Vint Hill Farms Station was activated as an Army Signal Security Agency monitoring station. Through several generations, from the Army intercept operators who served here in the 1940s to today's intelligence, electronic, and information warfare specialist, Vint Hill Farms Station has served as an indispensable part of our nation's national security. During World War II, intelligence specialists stationed right here intercepted a message from Berlin to Tokyo, which gave specific details of the German strategies for holding the Normandy coast against an Allied invasion. As you can appreciate, that information was invaluable, absolutely invaluable, towards the planning and successful execution of the Allied invasion of France. Later,
After the successful D-Day operations, General Dwight Eisenhower praised Vint Hill for its major contributions to the operation. And General Omar Bradley came here personally to talk to the soldiers of Vint Hill Farms Station, and in his words, thanked them for so silently and yet so magnificently serving this nation. Quiet professionalism. It was then and is now the hallmark of this superb installation. The soldiers and civilians of Vint Hill Farms Station, the engineers, scientists, and technicians, the logisticians and acquisition specialists, the support staff, and the organizations that they've so proudly served, CECOM's Intelligence Material Management Center and Intelligence and Electronic Warfare Directorate, the Program Manager for Signal Warfare, the 201st and 303rd Military Intelligence Battalions, the U.S. Army Garrison. Those folks have built a tradition of teamwork, a tradition embracing challenges, of solving problems, and of unwavering support to our great Army, and more importantly, to its soldiers. This magnificent team has been here for our country through World War II, Korea, Vietnam, throughout the dark, long years of the Cold War, Operation Just Cause in Panama, Desert Storm, and through deployments in Haiti, Somalia, Bosnia, and elsewhere. Wherever and whenever this nation has had young American soldiers, sailors, airmen, or Marines deployed, no matter how far from home, no matter how desolate or isolated the place, the great Americans from Vint Hill Farms Station stood watch over them, protecting them with a shield of information and intelligence. A French philosopher once said, "As for the future, your job is not to foresee it, but to enable it." All of the soldiers and civilians who have served so well over so many years here at Vint Hill Farms Station have certainly done their part in enabling our future. Your dedication, your energy and innovation, your many personal sacrifices, and the outstanding teamwork that has been represented here has made a real and a very important difference in the combat readiness of today's Army, and in our ability to build a force for the 21st century. Vint Hill Farms Station can take credit for and pride in major breakthroughs in sensors, combat identification, night vision and thermal imaging, and other intelligence gathering technologies, which have helped to make our Army the most powerful force in the world. Much of the Army's success with the cutting-edge systems in the recent Task Force 21 Advanced Warfighting Experiment, which is held in the California desert, was due to the dedication and the hard work of the outstanding team of government employees, contractors, soldiers here at Vint Hill Farms Station. As we see the future of the Army emerging in the months and years ahead, as we begin moving toward General Shalikashvili's and General Reimer's vision for a 21st century force capable of achieving decisive victory on any future battlefield by providing total information dominance to our forces, remember that information dominance is your business and has been long before the term or concept was in vogue. This is still your mission, and the Army is still counting on you. As extraordinary as the accomplishments of Vint Hill Farms Station have been, I think it's important to remember that they were enabled by a close relationship and a tradition of support that has existed throughout the years with its neighbors in Fauquier and Prince William counties. That tradition goes back to the 1940s, when the Norse sisters of Fauquier County invited soldiers from Vint Hill Farms to use their estate as a second home. And when the citizens of Warrenton established a local USO called the Signal Corps Grill. I like the sound of that. Maybe we can reestablish it someplace. The ties between neighboring communities and Vint Hill Farms have remained strong throughout the years, with outstanding community support during Desert Storm, with the post support of its neighbors during the blizzard of 1996, and with the joint cooperative efforts that are ensuring a smooth transition and transfer of Vint Hill's land for civilian use. For their many years of uncompromising support to Vint Hill Farms Station, we owe all of our neighbors in Virginia's northern Piedmont region a great debt of gratitude, and I'd like a hand for all those folks. Before closing, there are two people I need to publicly recognize and thank this afternoon. Mark and Judy Cornwall, the last in a long line of great command teams here at Vint Hill Farms Station. For the past 4 years, I got to tell you that Mark was scheduled to give up command a year ago, and I had him extended. And I think if I hadn't extended him, General Wilson would have had cause to remove me for terminal stupidity, because they have done a just superb job. Mark has led this installation and cared and loved its people in simply a magnificent manner. And in everything, he was supported by Judy. We recognized Mark at a small ceremony prior to this event with the award of the Legion of Merit. And we did it prior to the ceremony because Mark insisted that he did not want to take away from anything attributable to Vint Hill Farm Station. Unselfish to the end. Mark, Judy, you had a mission to close Vint Hill Farm Station with dignity. You've achieved that, and I thank you. You know, looking out over the audience, I see people who have made a difference, who are making a difference, who are helping to shape our great Army, and who are helping to keep it the best equipped, best trained, most powerful fighting force in the world. People who are, in fact, enabling our future. The Army's all about people. The proud history of service, sacrifice, professionalism, and competence which mark Vint Hill Farm Station is a tribute to its people. People made this place great. Those people, past and present, those still in government, and those who have gone on to other things, have created a spirit of service, self-sacrifice, of a dedication to something higher than themselves that will always be a part of our Army. And in that sense, Vint Hill Farm Station will always exist. That's its greatest legacy. That's your legacy. And it's one you should be extremely proud of. That's why on this beautiful summer day in Virginia, we are celebrating not the end of an era, but the hope and promise of new challenges still to come and of rich possibilities yet to unfold, all to be enabled by the spirit that was and is Vint Hill Farms Station. There's a great quote from Teddy Roosevelt that I think captures the spirit of the great people of Vint Hill Farms. He said, "It's not the critic that counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who errs and comes up short again and again, but who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. For all of those wonderful people who have either served at or supported Vint Hill Farms Station during the last 55 years, I tell you, you have never been afraid to get into the arena, and you have never failed. And so on behalf of a grateful Army, I say thanks, and God bless all of you. God bless the United States. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Commander, Vint Hill Farms Station, Colonel Mark E. Cornwell.
General Wilson. Distinguished General Officers, Department of the Army Civilian Executives, and honored guests representing the United States Congress, the Virginia General Assembly, and Fauquier County. I am both honored and proud to see such a large turnout for today's closure ceremony. I believe your attendance is indicative of the special place Vint Hill Farm Station has in this community and in our hearts. I thank all of you for joining us today. But I have a favor to ask each of you. Could you each come back once a week, because it's getting awful lonely out here? As the narrator said, I'm the last commander to preside over this magnificent installation. However, I cannot claim any responsibility for its reputation. That honor goes to my predecessors, some of whom are present today: John O'Connor, Richard Benfer, Frank Toomey, Leroy Adam, Rick Davis, and representing her husband, Mrs. Leland Holland. Please join me in recognizing their contribution. On June 11, 1992, to honor Vint Hill's 50th anniversary, then Congressman George Allen entered the following into the congressional record. Quote, Mr. Speaker, in June 1942, when the United States was reeling and responding from devastation and treachery of the Pearl Harbor attack, a 700-acre tract of land was purchased near Warrenton, Virginia, by the U.S. Army. Throughout the remainder of World War II, Vint Hill Farm Station became one of the country's most important and productive intelligence gathering assets. During its 50-year history of outstanding service to Americans and our vital interests, Vint Hill Farm Station has distinguished itself serving our nation's intelligence needs. Nearly 4,000 Army and civilian personnel continue today the distinguished tradition of excellence at Vint Hill Farm Station. They serve with extraordinary competence, compelling devotion to duty, and unparalleled achievement. End quote. No one envisioned 5 years later, our 55th anniversary would mark the end of our cherished history, and more importantly, terminate a special relationship which exists with the surrounding communities, a relationship which has united people from all walks of life. Today, as we gather here to pay final tribute to an installation whose unprecedented record of service and achievement stand alone, we must also recognize something as equally remarkable and distinguished. 55 years of support, cooperation, burden sharing, working together, and mutual respect shown by two very different communities: Fauquier County, with its landmark town of Warrenton, and the U.S. Army. Sir Harry Lauder, a Scottish author, once wrote, "The future is not a gift, it is an achievement. The achievements of the past are a direct result of what Congressman Allen described as extraordinary competence and compelling devotion to duty on the part of all Vint Hill Farm Station personnel." Let us recall with distinction and fondness some of the many contributions provided by those drawn into this special relationship, which began some 55 years ago. On October 22, 1942, just 4 months after Vint Hill Farms had been acquired by the U.S. Army, floodwaters from the Rappahannock River had caused in excess of $2 million damage to parts of Fauquier County. Hardest hit among the jurisdictions was Remington, Virginia. Acting on his own, Vint Hill Farms Commander Major Harry J. Lewis responded by sending signal corps generators to the Warrenton Hospital and the telephone company. Besides sending equipment to nearby Warrenton, Major Lewis sent additional generators, basic supplies, to the hardest hit in Remington. There, soldiers from Vint Hill were able to restore power to the town almost immediately. With an act of charity and recognition, in time of war no less, so began 55 years of community involvement and mutual support. On March 29, 1979, the Department of Defense announced it was contemplating phasing out operations at Vint Hill Farms Station. So what's new? At that time, nearly 5,000 persons living in the surrounding community were in some way associated with Vint Hill Farms, and as a result of this proposed closure, citizens from Warrenton and Fauquier established the Save the Farm Committee as a means of expressing their concerns to the military and Congress. Subsequently, thousands of telephone calls and letters were received in the congressional offices of Senators Harry Byrd and John Warner and Representative J. Kenneth Robinson. In July 1981, the decision to close Vint Hill Farm Station was reversed. These community efforts, although not primary reason for the decision to keep the installation open, did serve to reaffirm a special relationship each community had come to know and rely on. In that victory, people were the difference. Their contributions were enormous, their efforts renowned. No better illustration of that engaging spirit and unwavering devotion to duty exists than in the service of former Vint Hill Farm Station Commander Leland J. Holland. All 32 former post commanders served with distinction during their tenure. But Colonel Holland's extraordinary record of loyal service to this nation in time of extreme hardship stand out among all others. Colonel Holland is remembered for his distinguished 35-year military career, but most notably remembered as the Army attaché in Tehran, who was captured along with 51 other embassy personnel in November 1979 and held hostage until January 1981. Colonel Holland's courage inspired and sustained his fellow hostages during their 444 days of captivity. His courage, service, and patriotism in the face of overwhelming odds are indicative of that same spirit found in the Vint Hill Farm Station workforce, past and present. On July 21, 1988, a six-acre brush fire near the plains burned uncontrollably. High winds, drought-like weather conditions, and formidable terrain combined to frustrate the 150 firefighters who worked to put out the fire. Fauquier, Prince William, Loudoun, Stafford, and Culpeper counties struggled to contain what had become one of the worst recorded fires in Fauquier County history. At 12:30 p.m., Lieutenant Colonel James M. Knight, Deputy Post Commander, deployed 55 soldiers as volunteers and held the 205th Battalion on standby. The Plains Fire Chief, Chief Fred Wines, later credited all the volunteers and citizens for their efforts while singling out the soldiers of Vint Hill Farm Station. Quote, "Their support sure made our operation easier," end quote. In February 1991, the number of American troops serving in the Gulf surpassed the 500,000 mark. Among those troops were the soldiers of the 201st Intelligence Battalion, based out of Vint Hill Farm Station. In addition to the 200 troops deployed from Vint Hill, were nearly 100 soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines serving from all of Fauquier County. For the next several weeks, the Fauquier Times-Democrat contained a special section entitled "Fauquier Goes to War" in honor of those troops for Vint Hill Farm Station and Fauquier County serving in the Gulf. 17 hours after the U.S. troops began attacking Iraqi targets, then Vint Hill Farm Station Commander Colonel Rick Davis spent more than an hour answering questions from students at Grace Elementary School in Bealton. Principal Mike Wine had called post headquarters requesting a military leader to respond to students' concerns. Post headquarters called back to say that Colonel Davis would arrive at 1 p.m. to hold an impromptu question and answer session. The following week, Lee Bell of C. Hunter Ritchie Elementary School, where many students had parents serving in the Vint Hill detachment in the Gulf, invited Colonel Davis to once again address student concerns. As quickly as the ground war had begun, in late January came the surrender of Iraqi forces several weeks later. A parade of support in honor of returning soldiers from the 201st was held in the town of Warrenton. All-day open house and celebration entitled "We're Proud to be Americans" was held at Vint Hill Farms Station. Colonel Davis would later acknowledge the incredible support enjoyed by the families of those serving in the Gulf. And I quote, "Our great American national family, right here in Warrenton, Virginia. They supported our troops by donating their dollars. They wrote letters of support. They sent care packages. And most important, they let our magnificent troops know that they were loved." Most recently, who could forget, during the blizzard of 1996, the heroic efforts of Military Police Specialist Patterson and Sheriff's Deputy Lepke, slogging through waist-high snowdrifts, each carrying 2 elderly residents from their burning home to safety. Finally, how many lives have been saved by the immediate, courageous, and highly professional response of Engine Company Number 20, some of the most dedicated men and women this region has ever seen? I expect the number is in the hundreds, but one life saved is enough. From a personal perspective today, this ceremony is truly unique. As my military career ends after 20 years of service, so ends a tradition of service, support, and community that began here 55 years ago. Having had the opportunity to serve my country as long as I can and as long as I have is only equaled by the privilege of having presided over an installation with such a gloried past. We celebrate the contributions and achievements of Vint Hill Farms Station by recognizing and honoring the selfless service of so many talented people, many of whom are present today. We celebrate a special community relationship with our friends from Warrenton and Fauquier, many of whom are present today. I would be remiss, however, if I didn't take a few minutes to recognize some of the special people who have been instrumental in our quest to close with dignity. Chuck Bailey, my trusted deputy, to whom Major General Brougham awarded the Meritorious Civilian Service Award earlier today, who willingly assumed more and more responsibility as our key personnel departed. My loyal directors, Charlie Butler, Randy Cohn, Rita Fleizik, Kathy Hayes, Bob Irving, Dennis Joyner, Candy Railing, Mary Summer, and Dan Tice, who have done the impossible with reduced staffs and dwindling resources. Captains Dave White, Greg Holian, and Steve Wynn, and Command Sergeants Majors Willie Horton, Ray Bumbry, and Ken Tweedy, who helped me take care of soldiers and their families. Thanks also to the leaders of the resident activities, who never failed to let me know why I was here. Honestly, they made my job easy. Doug Wood, Larry Shively, Joe Witt, Colonel Tom Volrath, Colonel Mel Heritage, Bill Hayden, Nick Femino, and Don Valchef. My base transition coordinators, Joanne Smith and Nancy Williams. And a special thanks to Representatives Jay Katzen, Supervisor Jim Brumfield, Mayor Bill Lineweaver, and Mr. Hunt and Tiffany for playing a special role in making Judy and I feel part of this community. To you I have just mentioned, and to those I do not have the time to mention, I owe you each a debt of gratitude. Let me close with an excerpt from a poem that I read first time this last Sunday at the closing ceremony of the chapel, but it seems very appropriate. We are pieces of a puzzle, important one and all. We care much for each other, pain or victory, rise or fall. Like a puzzle put together, forms a picture right and true. All the pieces come together, like a family, all of you. At this point, I hope my message is clear. Vint Hill Farms Station is people, very special people, selfless, dedicated, professional people who come to work every day to be the very best that they can be. They are our honorees today. God bless them all. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for retreat.
Sheriff. Retreat! Order! Halt!
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. The garrison flag is being folded by representatives of current and former organizations here at Vint Hill. Lieutenant Colonel Ashton will now present the garrison flag to Colonel Cornwell. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the retirement of the colors and for the Army song.
All right, the colors.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the closure ceremony for Vint Hill Farms Station. The Vint Hill Commander and the Commander Communications Electronics Command wish to thank all the participants in today's ceremony and to thank the spectators for attending this historic occasion. There will be a reception starting in a few moments at the parking lot and lawn located directly to your front as you sit in the stands. Hi.
Putting a final touch to it. You know, I mean, this is a ceremony, and this is for real. This is closing. I do have some fond memories of this place, but everybody has to keep moving on for better things. That's right.
a lot of good memories out here at Vint Hill Farms, and to include the ones that I had here, my family and my girls especially. Vint Hill is going to be sorely missed. The facilities around here were great. You probably couldn't find any better military facilities in the Army than here at Vint Hill Farm Station.
Got a lot of memories here. A lot of my friends would come and go out of here, and it was like home to everybody.
And the time I was here, it was fond memories for me. I enjoyed the countryside, the base, the people I've met.
Came to Vint Hill in 1971 out of Turkey, and most of the folks that were with me in Turkey ended up here at the same time. But at the time I was dating Linda, and I took her to the first hail and farewell, and John O'Connor, who was the base commander at the time, introduced me as Captain Moore and Linda as Mrs. Moore to his wife, and it went all the way down the receiving line, and the next day I proposed.
This is a base that has a lot of history. Certainly going to be missed by the folks that have served here. Not a very happy day for me or anyone that I know that came here for this ceremony. I just want to be here when it ends.
Well, if I had to do over, I'd certainly want a base like Vint Hill Farms Station to serve part of my military career.